We kick off with some real 80s nostalgia here. Prepare your time machine, okay? They're able to afford eggs. Karen has set out some papers for Ed to sign, canceling their vacation to the Bahamas. She's engaging in passive aggressive mind reading. We don't need to go because you're going back into space, even though it hasn't come up, you dick. The thing she took away from the point when he threatened to throw out their daughter was that he had given up on going into space for them, but finally pivots it to be more of a I see you need to do this than the previous tone of I'm mad at you because you hit on another woman in a dream I had.
I said I can handle it. And I will.
That has all the reassurance of, yeah, that tire ain't going nowhere. Go on. At work, Ed starts thinking about what she said, that he will personally take up Pathfinder for its first flight. It's good to be the boss. After the titles, Gordo puts on what their newer space suits have become since he last went up and freaked the hell out in one. Fortunately, though, times have changed. Now he has a mustache. He finally has to get out and have a panic attack in the bathroom. He shows up for shots with Ed and Daniel like everything's peachy. Not helped that Ed is going on about their impressive scores, how they blew away all of the younger astronauts. Yes, he goes on and on about how impressed he is with Gordo. He is ready to get back in that suit and go up. Finally, Gordo admits to Ed that he had a weird little moment in his suit, and Ed needs clarifying. Weird covers a lot of ground, especially with Gordo. At times, weird can be his medium. He finally clarifies that he felt trapped in the suit, but makes clear he wasn't hallucinating or thinking about exposing himself or anything worrying. I mean, it's worrying, but again, we're on the Gordo scale, and it's probably a 3 tops. Well, if Ed is going to go back into space, he needs to get somebody to take over his job and decides that person should be Molly Cobb. Molly is shocked, first that he actually listened to her. I mean, she talks out of her ass so much she's practically a ventriloquist. Second, that he would take such a massive risk. This is a royal-class way to screw up what is supposed to be a groundbreaking craft, but never actually been flown before. But what rounds it out is expecting that she would take his job. Molly Cobb running the astronaut office? It's like Ghost Rider leading the Avengers. Those are a peg in a hole that just won't fit. But seeing the opportunity to perhaps do the same thing and give herself the coolest flight once her medical leave is up, that's enough to convince her. Well, Danielle goes to visit Clayton's sister in case there was anything of his that she might want.
I know you wanted him to admire you. Worship the ground you walked on. Is that what you call love?
This is a fun conversation. It sure is worth the trip down here. She's pissed off over Danielle being an astronaut because it's a symbol of national treasure being spent on something besides taking care of terrestrial problems, like Clayton's need for counseling for his Vietnam experience. She's also pissed that Danielle broke her own arm to protect the career of a white man, and that Clayton never would have joined the army if it wasn't for Danielle's patriotism. The accusation boils down to that Danielle supports a government and agenda that has no regard for her people, and that if she believes that they see her as an equal, she's deluding herself. Happy Black History Month! Elsewhere, Ellen is talking to Thomas Paine about the way the moon is scuttling the efforts towards Mars. She talks about the purpose of their development of the moon as a stepping stone for the rest of the solar system, which is a valid point. While there might be significant amounts of helium-3 on the moon that could be used to support fusion reactors if we manage to crack that, well, mostly any of the valuable stuff we find on the moon, it's not really going to be much use back here. Finding water on the moon is great, but we don't need to bring it back to the Earth. We've already got plenty, you might have noticed. But it would be easier to launch stuff from the surface of the moon since it's got 1/6 the gravity. So while it's a cool idea of living on the moon, the big problem is that mostly it makes it easier to head someplace else. To contrast, the abyssal plain of the ocean has plenty of resources that would have a significant impact on the lives of humans here on Earth if they were harvested than if we were harvesting most other materials on the moon and bringing them back to Earth. I mean, not that I want to crap on space, obviously, I'm a huge fan of it, just noting that one of the difficulties with any program is going to be cost, and economic benefits can make ventures more cost effective, and therefore easier to justify. The lithium is a big deal because it represents a return on investment, even if it's brought back to Earth, hence why there's incentive to take it back. The game isn't just economics, it's also politics. Payne notes one politician attacking cost overruns as a moondoggle in a speech that actually Payne himself wrote. The guy was demonstrating that he wasn't at NASA's beck and call during a re-election campaign, and then pivoting to support the bill that would let NASA license its technologies to private industry to help the agency move towards self-sufficiency. Just like in space, getting to where you want to go rarely calls for a straight line. Turning to the issue of politics, he says that he wasn't recruited for his role, he lobbied to get it. He's very pro-space, just like his real-life counterpart was, actually. He might have seemed a bit of a political lackey in Season 1. This seems to be, if anything, an effort to try to set that record straight, as the real Payne was disillusioned with how politics and financial pressures led to the curtailing of their space ambitions. The premise of the show is that there is a new competition that we must, compete in. While in our reality, winning meant the space race was over. America had been sold on a dream, and when it came through, there was no new dream to carry forward. We had already triumphed. The problem is, triumph comes from Latin, actually. A triumphus was when a great general returned and was granted this massive parade and rode inside of a chariot while a slave held a golden laurel over his head like a crown and whispered in his ear 2 words, Memento Mori, remember, thou art mortal, to remind him that all glory was fleeting. Planting the flag on the moon was NASA's triumph in more ways than one. It's only that in the world of For All Mankind that the contest is not over. There's no post-Apollo 11 malaise, and thus the drive to keep chasing the dream. Getting into the character side, Ellen's still bothered about being in the closet. Payne compliments how useful it is that she's so genuine, which people respond to better than those like himself who have to play roles. She goes home and Brock, I remember everyone else's name, but his is so stuck with Brock that I'm going to keep using it. So Brock is there with his boyfriend and fails to get her to join them heading out. He gives her a kiss on the cheek on his way out, and I really like that detail. This may have been a marriage for mutual cover, but there is a sense that there is love to it. Not love that easily fits into any simple categorization, but that's part of its charm. That there is a bond between them with no basis in physical or romantic attraction. Truly platonic. Plus, Plato was Greek, so the fact there's homosexuality to it actually makes it even more fitting. Ellen gets a book of poems that Pam the bartender wrote, and speaking of heartbreak, Gordo is watching Tracy on TV as she's about to head for the moon on Space Shuttle Discovery. While he ponders that, we cut over to poor Piscotti the redhead. Ed wants to have a talk with him on his last day. And has decided to screw with him. Piscotti is Air Force, but dutifully obeys, and while it is humiliating, it's kind of like a brief hazing for the biggest frat prize of all. He's going to be co-pilot on Pathfinder with Ed. But it's not his final decision of the day. There's still 2 hours left, and Danielle comes by. She appreciates what he's done. He got her back in and pushed her to the first real option that there was there. But it's not what she wants. She wants a command role. Ed is skeptical, but I think they're at cross purposes here. He's thinking that a returning astronaut, no matter how experienced, should be eased into a command role. And I think she is aware of his thinking in that. But she also made a serious personal sacrifice that protected Gordo and, I would argue, Jamestown. I mean, it would have looked bad if a seasoned astronaut freaked out so bad they had to send him home. She's not bothered because she thinks he's racist or sexist, but that he doesn't recognize that the setback from that amplifies the already existing obstacles that she has. And while she doesn't state it, the program needs this. Her sister-in-law might be a jerk, but she's probably not alone in her viewpoint. Being a token isn't good enough anymore. So Ed heads for his last meeting as head of the astronaut program, where pain brings up the pain. That joint meeting in space with the Soviets? Turns out the commie bastards love it, so it's a go. They like the idea of getting a look at current American technology, so Ellen pivots to the perfect countermove. Use their last Apollo capsule to do it. The shuttles made it obsolete, which is the point. It would only show the Soviets technology they already know. Well, since they're not planning on going to the moon, they can get away with a two-person crew this time. And so Payne would like to know if Ed could pick a couple of names off the top of his head that would probably be the best choices for handling this. And he says, yeah, actually, I do know would be the perfect commander for this mission. Danielle. If you're concerned about the meritocracy of Danielle wanting to come in and get handed a command position, understand she got the top score in the entirety of NASA. She's ready to do this. It probably is just Ed's hesitation to take someone who has been grounded for 9 years and send them back into space in a command role. Well, it certainly doesn't apply to this mission. She's got to be one of the most qualified people possible to use an Apollo capsule. Well, Payne is bothered with the choice, though he makes clear he's only worried the White House is going to be pissed, and perhaps referring to it as the White House in this conversation is not helping. Everyone backs up that Danielle has shown the grit that this program needs, and General Bradford notes that choosing a black woman counters Soviet arguments about race relations in America, and assures him that the SecDef is going to help Payne convince the president to do this. You're welcome. Well, Ed is late for Pathfinder on account of trying to show up to work in his Mojo mobile, only for it to die in the driveway. I swear, honey, this never happened before. Waiting with Piscotti is the third member of Pathfinder, Sally Ride, who in reality was the first American woman in space, and, although not known at the time, she was gay. I mean, I assume she knew at the very least, but point is, another first, even if retrospectively. Anyway, time to check out Pathfinder, a nuclear-powered shuttle. Try not to crash it, that'd probably upset people. Oh, and speaking of upset, Gordo. You abandoned us on the moon, but we've come back for revenge. Don't worry, it's not a hallucination. There are actually ants there. Still, it shakes him up, and he mentions it to Ed when they're about to fly out. Listening to him talk about fear and such, Ed gives him some tough love. Tough like trying to cook and eat an old boot. After taunting him, Ed gets in his T-38 Talon. It's a supersonic training aircraft, which Ed is interested in exploring as he takes the two of them out over the Gulf, where any sonic booms won't bother anybody, as he does some mock dogfighting with Gordo to try to help him get his mojo back. Speaking of manly men and their manly aircraft being men, Special Forces arrive in Panama via helicopter to rescue the captured 4 American troops. So that's raising tensions. Manly tensions. In Houston, Danny catches Karen smoking a doob out behind the outpost, and she shares, so long as he won't start doing that with her daughter. I like that it's not, oh, don't tell your parents. No, it's, don't hook my daughter on my own habits. Anyway, Gordo successfully gets a lock on Ed in the training craft, but something's gone wrong. Yeah, you're not solving that by turning it off and on, Ed. He's forced to bail out. Oh, what does that mean? We'll find out at episode 5, The Wait.